be screwed. Feel my own adrenaline, yeah, I do just what I do, and I hope you let me in, yeah.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 11th part of What If Aizen Finds BEN10 in Bleach Verse. Special note, this fanfic is written in the masterpiece of Bigby the Big Bad Wolf on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Ben's mind had been in turmoil ever since the trip to Karakura town. So many surprises and so many revelations. The moment he returned, his body went on autopilot as he made his way to Stark's chambers. Static, Lilith, Harable, and her Fraxian were all waiting. The moment he entered, they all turned their heads to the door. Lilith, Apache, and Mila Rose's faces all lit up at seeing him. Sung Sun and Harable were more reserved, but the relief was evident in their eyes. Static ran a hand through his hair. See? What did I tell all of you? Lilith flung herself at Ben, who was too dazed to resist. He and Lilith sprawled on the floor as the little Arankar seemed to try squeezing the life out of him. Ben, you're back. I bet those Soul Reapers didn't stand a chance, Apache said smugly. How did it go, Ben? Harable, however, noticed how put out Ben looked. Ben, she stood at his side, are you all right? Her words finally caused the others to spot what she had. Immediately they gathered around him. Ben, what happened? Sung Sun asked. Did the Soul Reapers hurt you? Apache added, her face a mixture of concern and anger. No, I'm fine, Ben said gently. Physically, sure. Mentally, on the other hand? Did you ever find out the identity of that masked guy? Mila Rose inquired. I had never met him before in my life. And that much was true. But he had learned who the masked man was, that and more. I'm sorry, everyone. That battle took more out of me than I thought. I need to lie down. That only made them more concerned. Ben, something's bothering you, Mila Rose said firmly. You know you can talk to us about it, right? Ben just gave her a smile. Thanks, Mila Rose, but really, I just need some rest. Lilith, Mila Rose, Apache, and Sung Sun were not convinced. Apache crossed her arms and opened her mouth. But we should respect Ben's wishes, Harable said, the girls flinching despite the soft tone in the third Espada's voice. Come, girls. As she made her way to the door, Harable placed her hand on Ben's shoulder, giving a gentle squeeze. I hope you feel better after some rest, Ben. She headed towards the door. Her Fraxiani glanced at Ben one more time before relenting. Get some rest, Ben, Mila Rose said, patting Ben's shoulder. We also hope you feel better, Sung Sun said with a nod. Apache softly jabbed him in the side. That offer still stands about talking to us. We're your friends, Ben. Despite everything, Ben couldn't help smiling. I appreciate it, girls. I'll let you know after I'm done resting. You better. With that, Harable's Fraxiani walked out the door. Lilith looked like she was about to say something, only for Stark to clear his throat. Go with them, Lilith. Ben's tired, and you should give him some peace too. Lilith looked ready to argue but paused at the serious look in Stark's eye. She sighed, rubbing her helmet. All right, geez. She looked over her shoulder. See you later, Ben. She ran out after Harable's group. Thanks, Stark, Ben said as he climbed into bed. Stark nodded before he fell back onto his pile of pillows. As Ben laid down his head on his own pillow and pulled up the covers, he replayed the events of Karakura town in his mind. His son from an alternate timeline and universe, superheroes called the Justice League. Ben groaned as he felt his head spinning once again. Yet those revelations were nothing compared to the bombshells his son, Ken, had given him. Ben's suspicions had been confirmed. Aizen was evil and had also been playing him for a sap. The thought made Ben clench the covers tightly. Sure, he could think of various reasons why he fell for the charismatic Soul Reaper's words, but at the end of the day, he allowed Aizen to make a sucker out of him. I didn't just fall for it, Ben muttered quietly. I helped him with that oasis, Plus I showed him a bunch of my aliens. How could I have been so stupid? Aizen had to be stopped, that was obvious. But how? Even if Ben somehow caught the Soul Reaper himself by surprise, there was a chance that all the Arrancar in Las Noches, particularly the Espada, might try and gang up on him. He didn't know what even half of them were capable of. Speaking of which, Ben shuddered when he remembered the warning about Aizen's Zanpakuto, Kyoka Sawaichu. Illusions through perfect hypnosis of the five senses. Ben wondered how many Soul Reapers and Arrancar had been affected by it. His BLD ran cold at the thought that Aizen might have hypnotized him too, but he couldn't recall ever having seen Aizen use his sword besides slicing off his shriveled arms as swampfire. Not to mention that Ken would have said something if the sword could affect memories. Probably figured I was too easy to waste using his Zanpakuto on, Ben whispered to himself with a scowl before shaking his head. Feeling sorry for myself isn't going to stop Aizen. I need a plan. As risky as it was, now that he knew Aizen was his enemy, the Soul Reaper couldn't possibly know Ben was onto him now. Once he was well rested, Ben could think of an actual plan. On that final thought, he allowed sleep to claim him. The next thing Ben knew, there was a knocking at the door. Starrick, who had also been awoken by the knocking, sat up. His brow furrowed as he eyed the door. Come in. Loli and Meneli were standing in the doorway, stoic as ever. Loli's eye roamed around the room before landing on Ben as he too sat up. Lord Aizen wishes to see you, Loli said bluntly. Ben kept a straight face, fearing the worst. Giving Starrick a quick wave, he followed Loli and Meneli down the hall. Ben blinked in surprise when he entered the throne room. Aizen was sitting upon his throne, with Ulquiorra, Grimmjow, Yami, and Luppy gathered. What surprised him, however, was the girl standing in the middle of the room. She had long orange hair with a pin that resembled a flower. She was wearing a yellow sweater with a red bow and tan skirt. Her own brown eyes widened when she saw Ben. Ben, Aizen said from atop his throne. Meet Oriheim now. She was the one Ulquiorra was sent to retrieve. Oriheim, meet our dear ally, BEN10. Ben became slack-jawed, not even registering the dear ally comment. She wasn't wearing the black uniform those Soul Reapers back in Karakura Town had. Was she a human? What was? How did? I see you are confused, Ben, Aizen said with a sliver of amusement. You are not the only one. There are some among you who aren't happy Oriheim was brought here. Isn't that right, Luppy? Ben looked over at the sixth Espada. Sure enough, Luppy, his clothes slightly singed and his skin lightly bruised, had annoyance billboarded on his face. Our entire fight was just a distraction to lure this one girl out, Luppy grumbled. Why would anyone be happy with that? My apologies, Aizen said without any remorse on his face. I heard that the fruits from the oasis had given all of you quite the boost in power. I didn't mean to pull you away from your fun. Luppy scowled and looked away. Now then, Aizen turned towards Oriheim. As for why I wanted Oriheim brought here, I believe a demonstration is in order. Is that all right, Oriheim? The girl trembled, sounding short of breath. Why, yes, sir, she said quietly. Ben clenched his jaw. She had been forced to come here, he concluded. In order to fully demonstrate your power, Aizen continued, please heal Grimmjow's arm. Ben, Oriheim, and Grimmjow's eyes widened. Luppy let out a scoff. Ridiculous, he declared. That's impossible, Lord Aizen. Tozen reduced his arm to ashes. You can't heal something that's been erased. She is not a god. Ben frowned. Aizen knew something about this girl, otherwise he wouldn't have asked her to do this task. Oriheim herself walked towards Grimmjow. Soten Kishin, I reject. Suddenly an orange light formed around Grimmjow's right side, reminding Ben of whenever Gwen used her mana spells. Did she have some kind of magical power too? Luppy was still taunting her. Hey, are you listening to me, girl? If this is some kind of show to cover your butt, you better quit. If you can't do it, I'll kill you. Ben's hand drifted to the Ultimatrix, his eyes on the unaware Espada. If that power of yours turns out to be fake, Luppy sneered, then there will be no reason to keep you. Curious at the stunned look on Luppy's face, Ben turned back toward Oriheim and Grimmjow. His hands fell at his side when he saw Grimmjow's right arm, now fully restored. Grimmjow himself stared as he held up the returned appendage. Luppy staggered back. How? I've never heard of anyone with that kind of healing power. How did you do it, woman? You still don't understand? Aizen asked, and Ben flinched at the playfulness in his tone. Ulquiorra, you saw her power as temporal regression or spatial regression, did you not? I did, Ulquiorra said plainly, still stoic even as Luppy faced him. That's impossible, the sixth Espada said shakily. No human could possess such an ability. Ben smirked despite himself, imagining how Luppy would react to some of the more powerful beings in his universe. You're correct, Luppy, Aizen said. For Orihim's power is neither of those. It is rejection of events. Ben and Luppy both looked up at Aizen. What? Her ability is to limit, reject, and negate any kind of event that has happened to her target. It is an ability that can return a target back to a previous state no matter what has happened to them. It is far superior to temporal or spatial regression, for it is a power that trespasses into God's domain. Ben felt a bead of sweat run down his brow. Her power was on par with Anodites like Grandma Verdona, possibly Paradox, or even Celestial Sapiens. Hey, girl, Grimjow called, causing Orihime to lightly jump at being addressed. He turned around, showing a burned spot on the left side of his lower back. Fix one more spot. Luppy's head snapped toward Grimjow as Orihime began healing the burned spot. Slowly the burns disappeared, revealing the number 6. Luppy narrowed his eyes. What do you think you're doing, Grimjow? A turn of his head and a shark-like smirk was the only warning Grimjow gave. An instant later he was right in front of Luppy, his restored arm piercing right through the other Arankar's chest and out the other side. Luppy hacked BLD as he weakly glared at his assailant. Gee, Grimjow, you son of a... Grimjow just sneered. That's the way it is, former number 6. Ben's hand flew to the Ultimatrix. He had an idea what Grimjow was going to do, and despite being enemies, he couldn't let that happen. But just then a pressure poured into the room, stopping everyone in their tracks. Now, Grimjow, Aizen said soothingly. He was still smirking, but Ben noticed something in his eyes. Something very, very dangerous. You have regained your arm and therefore your full power. As such, you are reinstated into the Espada. There is no need for further conflict, is there? Grimjow said nothing, but Ben could see that he was struggling not to react. Finally, the reinstated 6th Espada pulled his hand out of Luppy's body, his former replacement falling to his knees. Orihime, Aizen called softly. Please heal Luppy. Orihime was at Luppy's side in a few quick steps, the wound from Grimjow alongside his previous wounds all beginning to vanish as she focused. You have a very special power, Orihime, Aizen said as Orihime finished up healing Luppy. And you are my guest here. I will do everything in my power to make you feel welcome, as will my Espada. We won't allow anything to happen to you. His eyes drifted toward Ben, who caught his glance. At first the young hero was confused by Aizen's words, but when Aizen's smirk grew about a centimeter, the truth hit him like a punch to the gut. Aizen knew, or at the very least suspected. Apart from whatever need Aizen had of her powers, she was also insurance. Ulquiorra, Aizen said at last, closing his eyes. Please show Orihime to her room. Ulquiorra bowed before addressing Orihime. Follow me, girl. Nervously, Orihime followed after the 4th Espada, giving one last glance at Ben before she and Ulquiorra left the throne room. That will be all, Aizen said. You may all leave. Flexing his fingers, Grimjow strolled out. Luppy followed at a good distance, glaring daggers at his usurper. Yemi just shrugged and went about his way. Ben went immediately after, not wanting to be alone with Aizen. He thought the Soul Reaper might have a final word before he left, but no. Aizen said no more, though Ben could practically feel his eyes on him when he left. Once he was in the hall, Ben wanted nothing more than to punch the wall in frustration. Whatever Aizen was planning, he had to stop it. But first he needed to get Orihime out of here. And where exactly do I take her? Ben asked himself quietly. Even if we got out of Las Notches, we're still stuck in Hucomundo. Unless Orihime's powers somehow allow her to go back to the living world, we're trapped. We'll either be caught by the Arankar here or the Hollows out there. Ben paused. The Hollows, that's it. But then what? Team up with the Soul Reapers? Would they be willing to hear him out? What about the Soul Reapers that actually were as corrupt as Tozen warned? Unless he was in on it too. Of that, Ben wasn't sure. Then there was the Oasis, which could give the Arankars an edge in the upcoming war. And speaking of Arankars, what about those like Starik and Harable? Ben rubbed his head, realizing just how deep a situation he had gotten himself into. One thing at a time, he told himself. First things first, I gotta get Orihime out of here. No doubt Aizen would be keeping a closer eye on him now. Going in guns blazing would just put Orihime at risk. For now Ben would try to lie low and wait for the right opportunity. Little did he know, that opportunity was going to come very soon. No way, that seriously happened. When Ben finally returned, he found Lilynette, Miller Rose, Apache, and Sung Sun waiting for him in Stark's chambers. He had just finished telling them what had happened in the throne room since they were bound to find out sooner or later. She fixed Grimjow's arm out of thin air? Miller Rose asked. That's what he just said, Miller Rose, Apache said with a roll of her eyes. Rejection of fate though. How does a human get an ability like that? How should I know? Ben asked playfully. Apache blushed as Miller Rose, Sung Sun, and Lilynette snickered behind their hands. Apache shot them a short glare before facing Ben again. Still, why exactly did Lord Aizen have her brought here? She mused. Keep her from aiding the Soul Reapers? Is she supposed to be our own healer? I mean, if she can fix Grimjow's arm from nothing, think of what else she could do. He didn't say, Ben said honestly. While those powers would be helpful, Miller Rose said, cupping her chin, surely Lord Aizen would want her powers for more than just healing. I think he's doing it for the Hadouken. Everyone turned to Stock, who was gazing up at the ceiling from his heap of pillows, arms behind his head. She can reject whatever she wants, right? He went on. Lord Aizen must want her to reject the seal on the Hadouken. Once that's gone, he can make a Rankar faster than ever. Ben wanted to smack his forehead. The Hadouken, it all made sense, if Orihime could remove the seal, and Ben didn't see any reason why she couldn't. So now Ben had another mission, take the Hadouken when he rescued Orihime, if he knew where it was at least. Knowing his luck, Aizen probably kept it on his person. Better to just get Orihime out of here. At least that would delay him. Are you all right, Ben? Sung Sun asked. Ben shook his head. Yeah, Sung Sun, just thinking. About that girl? Apache teased with a smirk. I don't even know her, Apache. Did you think she was cute? Lilynette? What? Lilynette shrugged. I was just curious if you found her cute. How did we get to this topic? All right. So, Grimjow's back in the Espada, huh? Luppy must have been PSS. Oh, he was, but after Grimjow nearly killed him, I don't think he's gonna try anything. Apache smirked. You did say Grimjow was better than him, Ben. Guess that proves it. I'm surprised Grimjow didn't kill him right then and there, Miller Rose noted. I'm pretty sure he was about to, but Aizen stopped him. But was it for Orihime's benefit, or Ben's? Where's this Orihime girl now? Sung Sun asked. Ulquiorra took her to a room. Lilynette rubbed her helmet. Why didn't Lord Aizen have her unseal the Hadouken right then and there? Must have wanted to accommodate her, Sung Sun figured. She is a guest here after all. Ben stopped himself just short of snorting. As the girls talked amongst themselves, doubt clouded his mind. Would the girls listen to him after he got Orihime to safety? Or would they see him as an enemy? One step at a time, he reminded himself. One step at a time, and that first step would be figuring out where Orihime was. So, Ben, Apache said suddenly, think you'll run into that masked guy again? It's not impossible, Ben said neutrally. If there's one thing I learned from my stay here, anything can happen. The girls all chuckled and Ben smiled at their laughter, hoping that things would work out. So, Ben said, what do any of you plan on doing after this war is over? All four girls froze at those words. Even Stack seemed to sit up just a bit. We, Apache started to say, but closed her mouth. We never thought about that, Miller Rose replied. We were just focusing on the war itself. I guess we'll just do what we've always been doing, Sung Sun said. Serving Lord Aizen. Once Soul Society has been dealt with, we can improve things here in Hucomundo. We've already made so much progress with the Oasis. It will be nice, Apache said, stretching her arms. Hollows not having to kill each other to survive. And they'll be so powerful. Lillian looked over her shoulder at her counterpart. Won't it be great, Stark? Unlike Lillian, Stark had a contemplative frown as he gazed at the ceiling. I said, won't that be great, Stark? I heard you already, Lillian. Don't get me wrong, I was actually impressed with the Oasis. Was? Why would you not be impressed now? I'm not a fan of hollows eating each other to survive or evolve either, Static said, shifting to a sitting position. But it did keep the population under control. Odds are there's still going to be some hollows who'll eat others to make themselves more powerful. But give this place some time, and it could potentially be overpopulated. Even Ben's eyes widened. Hucomundo could become full. It'll probably take a long time, but not even Hucomundo is infinite. Even if it takes millennia, eventually there won't be room for new hollows. Surely, Lord Aizen would have thought about that. He wouldn't have allowed the Oasis if he hadn't taken overpopulation into consideration. He probably has, Stark said. But if he's got a plan for it, he hasn't told me. Those words confirmed Ben's suspicion that Aizen was just using the Oasis as a way to power up his army. Another mistake he had to correct. Just then, the doors opened. Everyone immediately looked up but relaxed when they saw it was Harem. Lord Aizen has called all the Espada for a meeting. Static scratched his head. All the Espada? Must be serious. If I had known, I wouldn't be getting much sleep. Oh, go to the meeting, Static, Lillian snorted. And tell me what Lord Aizen called you all for. If I feel like it, Stark mumbled as he followed Harem. You better tell me, Lillian yelled as the doors closed. Huh? A meeting that requires all the Espada? Mila Rose scrunched her face. It must be pretty serious indeed. Maybe that Oraheim girl removed the seal off the Hajoku, Apache suggested. Possibly, Sung Sun said. But we won't know until Stark and Lady Harem come back. Ben, however, couldn't believe his luck. All the Espada in the same place. This was the perfect opportunity. While there was a chance that Oraheim did remove the seal off the Hajoku, if that was why Aizen wanted her powers, but Ben was certain Aizen would have wanted him there too. Whatever the reason for the meeting, it meant Oraheim was hopefully alone. Now came the tricky part. I'd like to know where Oraheim's room is. Predictably, the girls all blinked as one. Why? Lillian asked with a tilt of her head. I feel bad for her, Ben said. All alone in this place, surrounded by strangers. I know how that feels. She could use someone to talk to. Apache scratched her head. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But what if she's at the meeting? No, I don't think so, Ben said. I think it's about something else. Well, if you say so, guess you want us to locate her by sensing her spiritual energy. Ben smiled apologetically. Yes, please. The heterochromatic Arankar stuck a finger in her ear, earning scowls of disapproval from both her teammates. All right. We might as well get a good look at the girl who steps on God's territory. If she can reject anything, she could even reject Barrigan's power, Sung Sun realized as they started heading out. Mila Rose grinned. His Majesty would love to hear that. Then her face became serious. Barrigan might not bother us again, but he might go after her. Ben almost grit his teeth at that realization. He had to get that poor girl out of here ASAP. Ben committed every twist and turned to memory as they made their way to Oraheim's room. So far, none of the girls reacted as if they were about to run into someone else, but Ben kept his arm on the Ultimatrix. If anyone asked, he would say he was rubbing his arm because he was nervous about meeting another human. Whether or not anyone would buy, that was another story. Well, we're here, Mila rose, stopping at a door in the middle of the hall. Unceremoniously, she pushed the door open. The room certainly looked like a holding cell. It was almost completely bare except for a large couch on the left side of the room, while the high window on the furthest wall had bars on it. The room Ulquiorra had him wait in when he first came here was more welcoming than this place. Oraheim had been kneeling on the ground, looking up at the high window on the far side of the room. She turned her head sharply when she heard the door, her eyes widening as Ben and the Arankar girls filed in. Instead of the clothes she had been wearing when Ben first met her, she was now wearing a long, white form-fitting dress and cape. Hey, Orihime, Ben said gently. We didn't get a chance to be properly introduced. As Aizen said, my name is Ben Tennyson. Orihime collected herself and gave him a small smile. Pleased to meet you, Ben. Name's Apache, said Arankar, leaned against a wall and crossed her arms. This is Mealer Rose, Sung Sun, and Lilinet. Mealer Rose groaned, crossing her arms. We can introduce ourselves, Apache. Apache shrugged. Just wanted to save time. As Orihime stared at the two, Lilinet stood right in front of her, leaning forward. When Orihime turned her head, she fell back with a squeak at the sudden proximity. So you have godlike healing powers, huh? The small Arankar asked. That's what Aizen said, Orihime answered quietly. Ben said you healed Grimjow's arm, Sung Sun said. We believe it, of course. Why would Ben lie to us? Ben felt his stomach turn at her words. But be warned, Sung Sun said softly. Grimjow is not one who likes being indebted to others. Either he'll brush off what you have done for him, or try to repay his debt as soon as possible. Now it was Apache's turn to groan. Come on, Sung Sun. Ben wanted to make sure she was comfortable, and you had to go and say that. Sung Sun frowned at Apache, but it didn't last. You're right, Apache. I'm sorry, Orihime now. I merely wish to warn you that Grimjow is one to watch out for. But rest assured, if he tries to do anything, we won't let him. Orihime blinked in surprise. Thank you. I can see you're still a bit overwhelmed, Sung Sun said. Perhaps we should allow you and Ben some time alone. The presence of another human may put you at ease. Ben shot Sung Sun an appreciative glance. The others gave the two one last glance before following Sung Sun out of the room. Once the door was closed, Ben knelt to Orihime as close as he could. The orange-haired girl's eyes widened again at the closeness. Sorry about this, he whispered to her. Do you know Ken? Orihime nodded. Then you know who I am. Orihime nodded. You were forced to come here, weren't you? Orihime flinched before she became downcast, wringing her hands and looking down at the floor. The one called Ulquiorra, she said so softly that Ben had to strain to hear her. He said he would kill my friends if I didn't go with him. Ben fought down a growl. Once he steadied himself, he put a hand on her shoulders, surprising her. Don't worry, he said, giving her a reassuring smile. I'm gonna get you out of here. Orihime gasped. What? How? First we gotta get out of here, Ben answered. Once we do, I'll see if I can make a hollow take us back to the living world. Ben thought she would be relieved, but instead she looked doubtful. Ken told you about me. That means you know what I'm capable of. I can get you out of here easily. Once you're safe in the living world, I'll see if I can at least get Soul Society to help me take down Aizen. Ken told me what you could do, Orihime said softly, giving him a smile. I believe you could get us out of here, but... She became downcast again. I can't leave yet. Ben did a double take. Why not? Orihime said nothing for a moment. Then she took a deep breath, and when she spoke again, there was fierce determination in her eyes. Earlier, Aizen had me called to another throne room. Multiple throne rooms? Now that he knew what the Soul Reaper was really like, Ben could honestly say Aizen's ego could put all of his enemies' own to shame. He showed me the Hajoku, Orihime said, causing Ben's eyes to widen now. He wants me to use my power on it. So Stark was right. My power can reject events and return them to a previous state. Then, Orihime's hands clenched into fists. I intend to return the Hajoku to a state where it never existed. Ben's eyes bugged out at this declaration. You can do that? I admit I've never tried something like that before, Orihime confessed. But Aizen wasn't the only one who believed I could do such things. So yes, I believe I can. Ben gulped. Her power really was god tier. Okay, change of plans. I bust you out of here, we get the Hajoku, then we get back to the living world so you can do your thing. Don't suppose you remember where this other throne room is, do you? I do, Orihime said. Aizen kept the Hajoku in this small pillar near the throne. Ben nodded. All right, you'll need to guide me there. Orihime nodded back, pumping her fists. You can count on me. Hey, Ben, Apache called from outside. I can sense Ulquiorra coming. He's not close yet. but I'm not in the mood to put up with him if he wants to play interrogator. Ben wanted to smack his forehead. Of course Aizen would have Ulquiorra guard her. He wanted to grab Orihime and make a break for it right now, but could he risk it? Seriously, could he? For all Ben knew, Aizen had something planned in case he ever found out the truth. Ben blanched. Was Aizen expecting him to try and free Orihime? Ben, hurry up, Lilinet hissed. Go, Orihime said softly, smiling again. I'll be all right. I'll come back for you, Orihime, Ben promised, returning the smile before heading for the door. Once he made sure it was closed, he joined the girls as they made their way back to Stark's chambers. By the time they returned, Harable and Stack were already there. And where did you five go? Harable asked. We decided to go see that Orihime girl, Lady Harable, Apache answered. Ben figured he'd be the best person to help her, Sung Sun added. Harable and Stark shared a glance, causing Ben's stomach to churn again. The others merely gave the two Espada curious glances. How was the meeting, Lady Harable? Sung Sun inquired. What did Lord Aizen want all the Espada for? We have intruders making their way to Las Notches, Harable replied, causing the other five to stare at her. Stack leaned back on his pillows. It all started like this. One by one the Espada entered the meeting room. It seems we have intruders again, Shale said with a pleasant smirk upon his face. Barrigan eyed the 8th Espada sharply. More intruders? How do you know this? The 22nd underground passageway has just collapsed, Zomari told him. Barrigan relaxed as they approached the table. The 22nd? Why should we be concerned? That's pretty far from here. I agree, Shale said as he sat down. Now maybe if they had entered the throne room instead. Inoitra couldn't resist chuckling as he too sat down. If only. So, what are we dealing with? Soul Reapers, or something like Ben? Shale pouted. Unfortunately, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't mind if others from Ben's universe came. I find them fascinating. The rest of the Espada sat down quietly. No one commented on Grimjow's presence in place of Luppy. They all knew about the girl who brought back his arm from nothingness. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the Espada. The Espada turned as one to see Aizen, Tozen, and Jin standing before them. Not so long ago we gathered here like this and gained an ally. Unfortunately, this meeting bears less pleasant news, for this time we are indeed under attack. But first, let us have some tea. The Espada said nothing as tea was served to them by one of the numeros. All of them awaited what Aizen would say regarding these new intruders. Has the tea been served? Aizen asked, giving a look over all the Espada. Each one had been served a cup. Good. Listen as you drink. Kaname, visual please. Yes, sir. Tozen pulled the lever on the left wall. The center of the table opened up, projecting an image of the intruders. There were 3 in total, all male. One was an orange-haired boy dressed in the black uniform of a Soul Reaper, a large sword resembling a meat cleaver on his back. The second was a bespectacled boy with short black hair and dressed in white. The third was a muscular boy with dark skin and wavy brown hair that covered the upper half of his face. His attire, much more mundane compared to the other 2, consisted of tan breathe and a dark, long-sleeved shirt with a rose emblem on the left side. Grimjow's eyes widened and he let out a short gasp. As you can see, Aizen said after taking a sip of his tea, there are 3 intruders, Uryu Ishida, Yasuchiro Sato, and Ichigo Kurosaki. These are our enemies? Asked Araniro, clearly unimpressed. Shale cupped his chin. Lord Aizen, isn't the one with orange hair the boy you sent Ulquiorra and Yami to test? Indeed, Shale, it is. Barrigan snorted as he eyed the 3. Some intruders. I thought Soul Society would be sending an army, but these 3 are youngsters. What are they supposed to be? A scouting party or something? Aizen chuckled. Don't take those 3 lightly. They were known as the Ryoka who, just the 4 of them, breached Soul Society and battled the 13 court guard squads. 4? If these are 3 of the Ryoka, then where is the 4th? Zomari asked. Surprisingly, the answer came from Ulquiorra. The 4th one is Orihime now. Inoitra threw back his head and cackled. A rescue mission? Just the 3 of them. More like a suicide mission. They look so weak. Lord Aizen said not to take them lightly. Harem said sternly to the fifth espada. Or have you learned nothing, Inoitra? Inoitra's amusement died instantly as a snarl escaped his lips, his eye full of hatred as he glared at Harem. You little beach, he muttered. Just then everyone's attention was drawn to Grimjow, who had risen to his feet and started to leave. Where do you think you're going, Grimjow? Tozen asked evenly. To kill them, Grimjow said plainly. What else? Tozen frowned. Lord Aizen has not given any orders yet. Grimjow growled. These guys aren't like Tennyson. It's obvious they're enemies, and I will crush them for Lord Aizen. Tozen looked like he was about to say something when. Grimjow, Aizen said softly from the table, freezing the sixth espada. Yes, sir, Grimjow replied, slowly turning toward Aizen. I'm flattered you wish to act on my behalf, but I wasn't finished talking. Would you please return to your seat? Grimjow did nothing, neither returning towards his seat nor leaving the room. He just stood there, looking at Aizen warily. Was it fear keeping Grimjow in place? Anger? Pride? What's wrong? Aizen said casually. Suddenly a pressure began to build up in the room. I can't hear your answer, Grimjow Jaeger-Jackas. Grimjow had just enough time to widen his eyes before Aizen aimed that pressure at him. Unable to put up a resistance, Grimjow fell to his knees. Aizen looked at him with that little smirk upon his face, holding Grimjow down for almost a minute before finally releasing the pressure. It seems we've come to an understanding. As Grimjow breathed for breath, Aizen rose from the table before addressing his warriors. Ladies and gentlemen of the Espada, while I say do not underestimate these three, there is no need to be overly concerned with them either, especially with the assistance we received from our dear ally, BEN10. Please return to your chambers and go about your business. Don't come to them, for I am certain they will come to you. Do not fear, for even if something should happen, as long as you walk with me there will be no enemies. Incidentally, is everything ready, Shale? That drew confused looks from the Espada, who turned as one towards the eighth Espada. Shale himself interlocked his fingers and rested his chin on top of them. Nearly finished, Lord Aizen, he said, a knowing smile on his face with his eyes half closed. I just need a few more components to complete it. Gathering them, however, shall not take me long. Excellent, Shale. I'm happy to hear it. For now you are all dismissed. Ben leaned back as Stark and Harem finished their recollection. A Soul Reaper and a couple of humans are coming to get that girl back, Apache recapped. Soul Society must really want her powers if they're willing to send someone to rescue her. They're doing it because she's their comrade, Sung Sun argued. Surely if Soul Society was involved in this, they would have sent far more forces than just a single Soul Reaper and 2 humans. I bet Soul Society doesn't even know they're here, Miller Rose added. Inoitra was right about one thing though. Those 3 trying to save her by themselves is a suicide mission. They can't possibly think they can take on all of us, can they? All that matters to them is saving their friend, Harem spoke up, her arms folded. Nothing else matters to them. I commend them on their loyalty, but their lack of forethought will be their downfall. While everyone else was discussing these intruders, Ben saw a golden opportunity. It was time to make his move. Hey, I'm gonna go stretch my legs for a bit. Oh, are you feeling better, Ben? Lillianette asked. Ben smiled, patting her helmet. Sure am, Lillianette. A lot better now. So, what was bothering you, Ben? Apache inquired. You were so out of it. I wasn't used to fighting Soul Reapers that weren't Jin or Tozen, Ben said smoothly, closing his eyes to prevent twitching. And that masked guy had some pretty crazy powers. I'll need to step up my game if I ever run into him again. Well, we could always train with you, Mila Rose said, hand already on her sword hilt. Girls, give him some space, Harem lightly reprimanded them. All 3 girls smiled sheepishly. Sorry, Ben, they said simultaneously. Ben smiled at them. It's all right. I appreciate the help, but I just need to walk around. I'll be back soon. Wait, Lillianette cried. Are you sure it's a good idea to have Ben be out by himself? Lord Aizen told all the Espada to return to their chambers, Stark said. After all the CRP Grimjow, and Noitra, and Barrigan have pulled, they should know better than to disobey Lord Aizen again. Yeah, should, Lillianette huffed, with her hands on her hips. Telling Enoitra and Grimjow to do anything outside of killing someone is like talking to a brick wall. Odds are one of them or both are going to do something stupid. Ben stiffened. She was right. Who's to say they weren't already planning something right now? Well, sounds like I won't have to worry about anything. See you guys later. Ben moved out of the room as fast as he dared without RSNG suspicion. Ben kept on walking, and he didn't stop until he put as much distance between him and Stark's chambers. Someone coming to save Orihime made perfect sense, though Ben was surprised that her personal friends were doing it without any backup from Soul Society. Then again, if Aizen was telling the truth about these guys wanting to kill a Soul Reaper for giving her powers to a human regardless of circumstances, then maybe they had decided to cut their losses and left her to fend for herself, Ben said to himself quietly. The thought made his fists shake in anger before he shook his head. No, I don't know the full story. I can't jump to conclusions. Right now I need to focus on helping Orihime's friends get here. Then we're gonna make so much racket Aizen won't know what hit him. Oh, Ben. Ben spun around at that familiar smug voice in the air. What? Shale? Lord Aizen already knew. Ben felt the floor open out from under him and everything went black. Ben couldn't even see his hand in front of his face, but he could feel himself tossing and turning through the darkness like on a roller coaster. Finally, he could make out a sliver of light coming towards him before finding himself flung into a wide and empty hallway. Ah, Ben, so lovely that you could drop in like this. Shale chuckled, his distorted voice coming from some kind of intercom. Groaning, Ben pushed himself to his feet. Leave the jokes to me. Shale, what's going on here? Didn't you hear me, Ben? Lord Aizen always suspected that you might have a falling out with us and entrusted me to plan accordingly. You? Shale chuckled. Not quite what you were expecting, No doubt you thought you'd be going up against one of those brutes like Enoitra or Grimjow. No, those barbaric oafs wouldn't do the job, right? How long? Oh, Lord Aizen had a feeling that you might turn against us sooner or later, but he knew the kidnapping of that Orihime girl would almost guarantee you acting out. The moment she arrived and we heard of those intruders, I knew it was time to make my move. Ben wanted to smack himself upside his forehead. It was just as he feared. Don't beat yourself up too much, Ben, Shale said with clear mockery. Why do you think Lord Aizen had you spend so much time with those sentimental fools, Stark and Hannibal? What? Lord Aizen took advantage of your good Samaritan nature and used it to keep you focused on helping those who held on to worthless concepts like loneliness and avoiding sacrifices. Honestly, powerful Arankars like them, caring about such garbage, it's embarrassing. Although, those wonderful fruits we created together are some of my finest creations. I sincerely thank you for your help. You're not welcome, was the only thing Ben could think of. Awa, come now, Ben, where is that witty repertoire? Don't tell me you're that upset. After all, you were suspicious of Lord Aizen, it seems. You just underestimated the depths of his intellect, as all those who oppose him do. Even someone with your power is no match against the likes of him. Ben wanted to see Shale keep that claim after witnessing a shot from Waybig's cosmic ray. So what happens now? Now, why Ben, now we play a little game. A game? Meatheads like Enoitra and Grimjow couldn't beat you in the long run. Your variety of abilities and creative usage of them could easily overcome their simple strategies of hitting you till you die. No, only one of intelligence could overcome you. And my little funhouse is just the thing for the job. Yeah, I'm not playing your little game, Shale. The fact that you want to do this instead of facing me directly tells me you couldn't beat me with your own powers. That remains to be seen, Shale answered, seemingly unbothered by Ben's taunt. But while I'm excellent at multitasking, there are other matters that require my more immediate attention, which is why I can't face you personally yet. Yeah, in case you forgot, I can just turn intangible and get out of here. Ben activated the Ultimatrix, turned the dial towards Big Chill, and hit it. Green light, and there the Necrophrygian stood. He unfolded his wings and prepared to fly when. I wouldn't do that if you care about the human girl's well-being. Big Chill faltered just before takeoff. What did you just say? Alas, I failed to find an effective way to counteract the intangibility of your aliens like Big Chill. However, I don't need to when I hold the life of Orihime Inao in my hands. Big Chill let out a hiss. You're bluffing. Aizen needs her to unseal the Hajoku. He wouldn't sacrifice her for anything. Ben. Lord Aizen is an MSTR of plans, and plans within those plans. As amazing as Orihime's abilities are, do you really think he would risk his success on one individual? Big Chill lowered his head as his wings folded around him again. Would Aizen be willing to sacrifice Orihime if necessary? Hadn't he hinted as much when she had healed Grimjow's arm? Was Ben willing to take that kind of chance? Well, Ben, what do you say? Big Chill resisted the urge to punch the wall. Aizen had been so thorough, but the hero forced himself to calm down. He still had a few tricks left up his own sleeve, and as smart as Aizen was, there was no way he could prepare for every single situation, especially involving Ben and his aliens. All right, Shale, he transformed back to his human self. I'll play your little game. I knew you would. Ben could practically feel the smugness like it was oozing off the 8th Espada. Just go further down the hall, Ben. Once you do, then the game truly begins. I can hardly wait, Ben said under his breath as he made his way down the hall. He was going to beat what Shale had in store for him as soon as possible and then help Orihime and her friends. He just hoped they could hold out for the time being. You know, Ben, Shale said on the intercom as Ben continued his trek across the hall, I don't really care for humans or soul reapers. I would gladly watch Lord Aizen wipe them all out of existence. Charming, Ben muttered, eyeing the room for any more unexpected surprises. You always did kinda give me a bad vibe, but I had no idea it was this bad. Oh, Ben, you and Lord Aizen are the sole exceptions. You, in particular, are far more than just a mere human. Those aliens you turn into are such fascinating research material, not to mention the Ultimatrix itself. Oh, so I'm just a test subject. I feel so flattered, Ben said dryly. I must give that Azimuth fellow his proper due. How I would love to meet him in person and learn his secrets. I'm surprised you never tried to go after the Ultimatrix. Oh, believe me, Ben, I wanted to so badly. But Lord Aizen was against it, not wanting me to chance damaging the Ultimatrix due to how different the technology is to ours. I suppose I could have interrogated you, but since you were the only one here who knew how the Ultimatrix worked, Lord Aizen requested I leave you alone. Somehow owing my safety to Aizen just makes me feel dirty now, Ben said with a shudder. Something tells me that you already planned for it in advance, but what do you expect to do if Hannibal or Stark come looking for me? I am so glad you asked. This chamber actually conceals your spiritual pressure from outside sources. I actually sent one of my Fraxian to deliver a message for Stark and Hannibal, telling them that I placed you in a special bunker to keep you out of harm's way. You cannot seriously expect them to believe that, can you? Lord Aizen suspects those 3 intruders to be a vanguard of sorts. More Soul Reapers will surely come, and since you finally made your debut, it would be logical to think they might try to capture you for study. And what do you think will happen once they figure out you were lying and are actually trying to kill me? Ben asked, scowling. Those 2 and their little group owe everything to Lord Aizen, Shale said darkly. Their loyalty to him should be far greater than some worthless friendship to a human, no matter how interesting he is. Ben's hand twitched. When he went up against Aizen, would he have to fight Stack and Hannibal? Would he be able to convince the 2 Espada that Aizen was just using them? By the time they find out, Lord Aizen should succeed in his goals. On the off chance they do decide to rebel against him despite all he's done for them, Lord Aizen will cut them down. Not unless Ben beat Shale's game and kicked Aizen's butt first, but the hero from another universe kept that particular thought to himself. So when does this game of yours begin, Shale? Why, right now. Ben came to a halt. The hallway didn't seem out of the ordinary, at least any more than the regular hallways of Las Noches. What are the rules? He asked tensely, hand already on the Ultimatrix. The rules are simple enough, Shale said, and Ben could feel the smirk that was no doubt on the 8th Espada's face. Proceed through the corridors in a straight line. Your objective is simple, survive. Oh, and in case you were wondering, I have installed special sensors in these corridors that are locked onto your spiritual pressure. For while this chamber conceals it from the outside, the sensors can still pick it up. If for some reason you cave in and decide to simply escape, I will be paying dear Oriheim a visit. In fact, why don't I make it easier and say that amphibian, armadillo, and big chill are forbidden for the duration of this game? I get it, Ben growled angrily before taking another step forward. A sliding noise drew his attention as parts of the wall slid aside to reveal circular openings. Spikes emerged with audible sharpness. You've been planning this for a while, haven't you? Ben asked with a slouch, having a feeling that he was really going to hate this. Oh, you have no idea, Shale said giddily. Your training with Haribal's group and your battles with the other Espada were wonderful observations, but I long to witness your abilities through my own actions. At long last, the opportunity has come. I swear, if you have some sort of speech written down for this. Shale chuckled. Yes, quite right. Forgive me, I'm just so happy to have this chance that I just can't control myself. But alas, I think the time for conversation is over. It's time for the game to officially begin. Ben, good luck. Thanks, Shale, Ben said as he activated the Ultimatrix. That just means so much coming from you. He slammed the dial down. In a flash of green, XLR-8 stood in his place. Let's do this. Ben shot down the hallway as fast as he could, certain of what those spikes were meant to do. Sure enough, sections of the wall shot forward the moment he passed them, slamming together. This the best you can do, Shale? Ben shouted as he zoomed past the traps. His enhanced reflexes kicked in when suddenly circular holes opened in the floor, releasing more spikes. Ben darted around them as sections of the walls continued closing in, zigzagging across the spikes emerging from the floor. Curious, Ben ran up the walls and onto the ceiling, never losing his stride. Oh ho, you can run on ceilings too as long as you keep your momentum? I'm impressed. Soul Reapers and Arankar usually don't think about moving upside down. Ben ignored him and continued running. Underneath his visor, his eyes widened as holes in the ceiling opened up, flames spewing out. Ben dodged to the side, only to zoom out of the way once more as what looked like black spears shot at him. Maneuvering back to the floor, Ben took a moment to see what was happening. Spikes were rising out of the walls and floors, fire was spewing from the ceiling, and those spears were darting across the room. You've been very busy. What, this? Shale asked in mock modesty. This is just an afternoon pastime. Ben frowned as he looked the hallway over. Shale couldn't be so arrogant as to think this little obstacle course could do him in compared to fighting the Espada. Could he? He had to assume that Shale had some nasty surprise waiting at the end. Nothing more was said as he shot through the corridor, dodging spikes, flames, and spears faster than the eye could blink. Being one of his first aliens, Ben knew XLR-8's capabilities by heart, but he wondered if Shale had something else in mind. As an answer to his suspicion, Ben suddenly found himself off balance as the floor had become inexplicably slippery. Whoa, woo-oh-ah! Ben fell flat on his back as he skidded across the floor. His eyes widened as he quickly rolled over to dodge a stream of fire, and then rolled again with a spear landing on the ground inches away from him. Did you really think I wouldn't take XLR-8's speed into account, Ben? Unlike Soul Reapers and Arankar, who can simply propel themselves, your alien needs a suitable surface to run on. Think of that slime on the floor as liquid soap. Can your alien run on slippery surfaces? Ben decided not to even chance it and instead hit the dial again, becoming Jetray. As he was about to take off down the corridor, a great gust of wind blasted down the hall. Flat-footed by this sudden development, Ben was putting in all his effort to remain airborne. Hearing a hissing sound above him, the hero ceased his flight, allowing himself to be thrown back by the wind. He had managed to avoid a particularly large spike that shot down from the ceiling. Ben tried to fly further ahead, but the wind had increased. If it picked up any faster, he would be slammed to the other side of the wall. Oh, Ben, you're falling back. Come on, you've barely even started the game and you're already struggling. I'm guessing the reason you haven't gone into another mobile form like, say, Cannonbolt, is because he too can't move on slippery surfaces. With Jetray incapacitated by my fans, how will you ever get further? Like this. Ben hit the dial again, transforming into Spider Monkey. Firing a web from his tail, Ben pulled at the web and clung onto the wall. Even with sticking to it, Ben could feel the force of the wind threatening to pull him off. Spider Monkey, a bit unexpected, but will he be enough? Ben said nothing, focusing on trying to make it across the hall. It was bad enough making sure he remained stuck to the wall, let alone with the numerous traps. Too close. Okay, spider monkey's out. Time to try dialing in someone else. Ben hit the dial again, transforming into Diamond Head and creating a board of solid crystal. Hitting the dial once more, he transformed into Water Hazard. Landing on the slippery floor, Ben threw his hands back and fired streams of water out of his hands, propelling him forward like a surfer. Now that's more like it, Shale beamed gleefully. Sometimes I really think you just like hearing yourself talk, Ben said to himself as he zoomed down the corridor. Water Hazard's reflexes allowed him to dodge the many spikes, flamethrowers, and spears further ahead, and the force of his water allowed him to power through the gale force of the fans. You're almost there, Ben, Shale cheered. Keep it up. Be quiet, Ben yelled as he put as much force as he could into the water jets. He could finally see the end of the hallway up ahead, with a flight of stairs leading upwards. The walls on either side were open, revealing two large industrial-sized fans. Hitting the dial again, Ben transformed into Chromastone and fired 2 laser blasts at each one, completely decimating them. With the wind now stopped, Chromastone flew to the stairs. Clapping filled the air. Nicely done, Ben. Proceed up the stairs to the next part of the game. Snarling, Ben ran up the front of the stairs, trying to figure out what the 8th Espada was up to now. When he reached the top of the stairs, he found himself in another hallway. Darting around, Ben slowly advanced further into the room. A great thud boomed behind him, forcing Ben to turn around and see that the way to the stairs was closed off. Instead, there was a complete wall, as if the stairs had never been there to begin with. Scowling, Ben advanced forward into the hallway. When he reached the middle, numerous sliding sounds drew his attention. The walls and ceiling were full of square openings. Quickly, Ben created a force field of energy as numerous harpoons fired from the openings. Chromastone grunted as the harpoons struck his barrier. With a yell, Chromastone converted the barrier into a wide surge of energy, blasting all the harpoons away. Quickly, the Crystal Sapien ran to the end of the hall and into the next room. Much like the others, the room looked completely harmless. At least, until he stepped into the room and a great boom of sound greeted him. Ben could feel himself being pinned down by ultrasonic waves. Weakly looking up, he now saw speakers in the walls. Ben hit the dial again and transformed into Echo Echo, creating 4 different duplicates of himself. The 4 Echo Echoes screamed, creating a force field of sound around them and canceling out the sound of the speakers. Holding hands, the 4 slowly made their way across the hall and into the next room. You're doing wonderfully, Ben, Shale said. Oh, I so love seeing your aliens in action and all the ways you use them. At least one of us is enjoying all this, one Echo Echo clone grumbled. Proceed to the next area, Ben, Shale said tauntingly. As much as I enjoy seeing your abilities, I need to prepare myself in case some of our invaders come into my territory. Don't worry, should you make it to the final part of the game, I'll be there. Have fun, Ben. Oh, and in case you're thinking you can escape just because I'm not there, my system will automatically alert me if you've escaped and my Frexione that I stationed will retrieve Orihime for me. Wouldn't want you to get any ideas. Bye now. When I get to you, Shale, Ben muttered as he entered the next room. What he saw made him and his clones slouch. It was a narrow walkway. On either side were pits full of spikes. Bladed pendulums hung from the ceiling, SWNGNG back and forth. Okay, that's just lazy. Where did he get that from? Supervillain death traps for dummies? Ben slapped the Ultimatrix again and transformed into Lodestar. Raising his hands at the pendulums, Ben fired magnetic pulses that caused the pendulums to swing upward and embedded themselves in the ceiling. Once he was certain they were stuck in place, Lodestar ran to the next door. Another seemingly normal hallway awaited him. Ben wasn't going to chance it and transformed into Cannonbolt. Curling into a ball and spinning rapidly in place, Ben shot forward, smashing into the other room. Uncurling himself, Ben looked behind and saw the walls in the previous room had begun moving and closing in, similar to the first room. Guess Shale's starting to run out of ideas. Hope Orihime's alright, and that her friends have gotten to Los Notches okay. Knowing there was nothing he could do about that for now, Ben proceeded into the next room. When the door closed, Ben found himself in a room of perpetual darkness. He transformed into Chromastone at once and emitted light, illuminating the room, only to find out that there was no need as multiple jets of flame shot from various angles in the room. Flamethrowers had been positioned in the floor, the walls, and the ceiling. Ben frowned as he hit the Ultimatrix and transformed into NRG, casually strolling across the room as the flames warmed his armor. NRG rested one elbow in the palm of his other hand as he stroked the bottom of his suit's opening, like when he would scratch his chin. Something's not right. These past few rooms have been way too easy. Did he do it so I would let my guard down? Can't let up for a moment. As Ben stepped into the next room, Shale's voice came back on. Ben wondered where the speaker for the intercom was. "Welcome, Ben. This is a pre-recorded message I installed in the event. I wasn't present for you to reach this part of the game. Well done, by the way." "Oh, get on with it already," Ben said, if only so he could blow off some steam. "No doubt you wish to get onto the next stage, so I won't keep you waiting. For this part, something's a little different." The sound of footsteps drew Ben's attention to three Arankar he had never seen before entering the room from the other end. In the lead was a tall man with slicked back, blue hair, and a thin mustache. His mask remains covered the upper left half of his face, and his hollow hole was in his stomach, visible through the cut in his jacket. The second was a short, red-headed Arankar with a sleeveless blouse. His mask remains positioned on the upper left side of his head. The third was a tall and bulky man with spiky hair. His mask remains, a skull-like bull mask, covered the upper left corner of his face. "Ben, I would like you to meet Petros, Menes, and Aldegger." These three fools thought they could try to overthrow Lord Aizen and claim Hugo for themselves. Ridiculous, I know, but they were stupid enough to believe they could pull it off. All three Arankar snarled in anger at the recorded taunt, which continued. "Lord Aizen had them easily captured and gave them to me for my use. These three shall be your opponents for this level. Do put up a good show." "It's disgusting," the lead Arankar said. "Shale will pay for doing this to us. Once he's out of the way, then we'll deal with Aizen." "But first," the red-headed Arankar said as he sneered at Ben. "At least we've got someone else to play with." The lead Arankar narrowed his visible eye at Ben. "Ben Tennyson, the disgusting human that Aizen welcomed into our base and made into our ally. Being led by a soul reaper was bad enough, but allowing a human to join our ranks was going too far. So there are other Arankar that don't like Aizen either, huh? You guys try teaming up with Berrigan or something." The lead one snorted. If Berrigan had any interest in overthrowing Aizen, he would have done so by now. No, Menes, Aldegger, and myself had intended on claiming the Hajoku, learning how it works, and making ourselves the rulers of Hugo. "Look where that got you," Ben said dryly. "Be quiet, human," the large one said. "Petros, let's kill him and get this over with." "So soon?" the redhead asked. "I say we make this human suffer. After what Shale's put us through, we deserve to have some fun." Ben shifted his stance. "You're welcome to try." "With a human right in front of us," Petros said, hand on his sword, spiritual pressure flooding the room as he did so. "It is natural for us to kill it." Ben made the first move, firing a blast of energy through the opening in his suit. All three Arankar used Sonido to dodge the attack. Petros then appeared in front of Ben, unsheathing his sword to create a slashing motion and then resheathing it again. The action launched a crescent-shaped energy blast that struck Ben's containment suit. Naturally, it hadn't damaged him in the slightest, but the force was strong enough to knock him off his feet and onto the ground. "Impressive," Petros observed. "Even a level 1 slash should have done some noticeable damage. What is that armor made of?" "Don't know myself," Ben admitted before firing another energy blast, Petros using Sonido to dodge once again. "Level 2, Petros said as he appeared beside Ben, who had enough time to throw his arms up when that crescent blast wave struck him again. It sent him flying across the room and slamming into the wall. "That armor is strong, but it lacks proper mobility," Petros said as Aldegger and Menes joined him, the latter two smirking at Ben. "My technique has precisely 20 levels, each one stronger than the last. Perhaps through them we can shatter that armor of yours." "You wouldn't want that," Ben said, though he highly doubted that the Arankar's attacks could pierce NRG's containment suit. "I say we go ahead and get it over with." "Petros," the red-headed Arankar said, drawing his blade. Stab. Erizo. Smoke gathered around the Arankar as Ben picked himself off the wall, bracing himself against the spiritual pressure that the Arankar set off in his released state. Once the smoke cleared, Ben could see how his opponent had gained white, bone-like armor on his chest, exposing his hollow hole. His face was completely covered by his mask, his red hair now flowing from his head down to his waist. His arms were covered in long, tail-like appendages while an actual tail rose up behind him. The larger Arankar chuckled. If Menes wants to go all out, then so shall I. He drew his sword. Get them, Jabali. Alldegger was also engulfed in smoke as more pressure filled the room. When it cleared, Ben saw that his upper body was covered in bone-like armor. His mask remains had turned into a lower jaw on the armor right in front of his neck, leaving the guy's face completely exposed. 6 appendages rose from his back like bony wings. It reminded Ben a little too much of Luppy despite the many differences. While I think it's foolish for us to waste our released state on a human like him, even one such as BEN10, Patros said, perhaps it would be best to end this quickly. That device which is the key to his transformations, the Ultimatrix. If we can control that and the Hajoku, we could be unstoppable. Better guys than you have tried, and I kicked all their butts. All that proves is that you have become arrogant in your victories. Ben groaned, putting a hand on his faceplate. Spare me the dramatic bad guy speech. After everything I've been through right now, I am not in the mood. Oh, Ben. Ben slumped with a louder groan. Here it comes. If this recording was activated, that means your opponents have entered their released states. You may have handled your own against Barragan's Phyrexione, but let's see how well you do against 3 released state Arankar at the same time. I'm confident you'll put it off. All the same, good luck. Patros' frown deepened. Shale is that confident in you, I see. Since he believes you can hold your own against 3 released Arankar, we shall put that to the test. Pollute, Gerifalt. Lightning seemed to gather around Patros' body before smoke erupted from him just like his cohorts. When it cleared, Ben saw that Patros' upper body was covered in white armor like Alldegger. The main difference was that Patros was bulkier and his arms had gained bizarre, pincer-like features. His mask completely covered his entire face except for a spot on the top right of his head, showing his now messy black hair. This is my maximum level, Patros boasted. And this is me being entirely done with this, Ben countered, firing another beam at the Arankar, who all scattered. Alldegger had his appendages close in on him, revealing they were hinged. It gave him a ball-like appearance. Suddenly he spun in place and launched himself at Ben. Oh come on, you totally ripped that off from Cannonbolt, was all Ben could say when Alldegger struck him, knocking him off his feet. Suddenly Menes' arms wrapped around him, spinning him in the air. Let's see how tough that armor really is. With a heave, Menes slammed Ben into the floor. Patros aimed his right arm at Ben. Burst forth. The upper part of his arm swung open, launching a blast of energy at the downed hero. Debris flew everywhere from the force of the explosion. Alldegger chuckled. This is the great BEN10, the one who defeated Enoitra and Luppy. Menes laughed. He ain't so tough. This proves why Aizen needs to be overthrown. Only a fool would welcome someone so weak in our midst. Ben. If you're hearing this, it means your opponents must still be standing. Come on, Ben, regardless of what I said earlier, I know these 3 small fry couldn't possibly be a challenge for you. I figured you would have taken them out in 5 seconds flat. DMN, that's Shale, Menes hissed. Keeps looking down on us. Don't waste your time, Patros said. Just another one of his recordings. It'll be satisfying to see the look on his face when he sees we defeated that pathetic human he had so much faith in. Come on, Ben. I know you can do better than this. I mean, it's almost like you're not trying to save that poor Oraheim girl. Can you live with yourself if anything happened to her? I'll let you in on a little secret. You know those 2 attendants Lowly and Menoli, right? Well, I heard that they aren't too thrilled with the attention Lord Aizen's been giving her. They might want to do something about it. While I intend to make a research specimen out of her, I don't suppose what condition she's in matters as long as she's not permanently damaged. What is he talking about? Alldegger asked. Apparently Aizen brought another human here, Patros answered. What could this human girl possibly have that he would be interested in? Perhaps I'll let those two use her as their little plaything between my experiments. Shale had even recorded himself chuckling. I wonder what her thoughts will be during all of this. Will they be, why did this happen to me? Why didn't Ben save me? Ben, why weren't you there for me? I thought you were my friend. Someone, please, please save me. The three Arrancar turned as one when they saw a flash of green light out of the corner of their eyes, and the rubble suddenly erupted, revealing an extremely angry swampfire. So he is still alive, Menes said. Don't know why he SWCH forms, but that giant plant guy isn't going to save him. Ben's entire body trembled. His fists tightened so strong his fingers were digging into his hands. His teeth clenched so strong it looked like they could shatter. I've had enough. Ben hit the Ultimatrix again and spikes popped out of it. Green light filled the room. Once it did, all three Arrancar took a step back in shock. Swampire now looked like a humanoid tree. His head and back seemed to be composed of a gooey, blue substance. 3 spheres of said substance were aligned either side of his arms. Ultimate Swampfire, the new alien yelled. What is this? Menes cried. I didn't know he could do that. It doesn't matter, Aldegar said. A second transformation or not, he's not a match for us. Agreed, Petros said. We'll still kill him and make Shale pay. Yeah, that's right, Menes said. He launched his arms at Ben, who proceeded to grab them with ease. Menes didn't have time to react before Ben swung him through the air before launching him at his own teammates. Aldegar and Petros both dove out of the way as Menes slammed into the wall. As the Arrancar tried to pick himself up, Ben raised his arm and fired a glob of the blue substance from his hand. It exploded in a burst of fire and smoke the moment it struck Menes. Aldegar's eyes widened. Was that napalm? Turning his head, he gasped before covering himself with his appendages as a stream of blue flame struck him. His eyes widened as the blast blew apart his makeshift shield, engulfing his body in flames. How can a human gain such a drastic increase in power? He cried as the power of the blast slammed him into the wall near his comrade, slumping weakly to the ground. Ben rounded on Petros. Since the guy's entire face was covered, Ben couldn't tell if he was intimidated by the defeat of his allies. Then, as if in response, Petros scoffed. The two of them actually lost to a human? Pathetic. You won't do any better, pal, Ben said as he strode towards the Arrancar. I respect your confidence, but I'm in a higher class than those two. Both arms opened up this time, firing a sweeping blast at the evolved Methanosian. Ben held his arms out in front of him as the beam struck. Petros gasped when he saw that his attack did little, if any, damage to the hero. Impossible. Yeah, I'm kinda good at doing that. Ben held both arms out and fired a massive blast of blue flames at the Arrancar. Like Aldegar, the blast slammed Petros into the wall, forming a large hole when he impacted. Ben waited tensely as Petros peeled off the wall and fell to the ground. When his opponent didn't immediately get to his feet, Ben threw several seeds in front of the three, which immediately grew into large vines that began wrapping around them. Once he was certain they were completely immobilized, Ben ran into the next room. All right, Shale, Ben shouted. What do you have for me? More traps? More Arrancar? Giggling was the response. Creepy giggling that would have run chills down his spine if Swampfire physically had one. The giggling got louder and was soon joined by a cacophony of different laughter. The room was filled with multiple Arrancar of various shapes and sizes, some even literally looking like giant beach ball with heads and limbs. The main thing they had in common was that their uniforms were full-bodied, white suits with black lines running down the middle. Ben remembered what Lilinet had told him when they first met. Shot in the dark, but I'm guessing you guys are Shale's Phyrexiani? Correct, one Arrancar, a muscular man whose mask remains had formed a helmet that covered his left eye. We are the Phyrexiani of MSTR Shale. The corridor behind us will lead you directly to him. He's busy with some other guests, however. Ben gasped. He had to get there now. If you want to get to MSTR Shale, giggled the rotund Arrancar, you'll have to go through us. Of course I have to. Well if that's the case, bring it on. The Phyrexiani all charged, but Ben was not deterred. One particularly large one went to grab him, but Ben simply grabbed him, tossed him over his shoulder, and slammed him into the ground. Two muscular Arrancar that made Ben think of footballs both threw a punch. Ben easily caught their blows and shoved them back with enough force to send them sprawling. He then threw his seeds and wrapped the two up in his vines. The others hoped to rush him, but instead screamed and scattered as Ben began tossing some fire bombs. Taking advantage of their panicked state, Ben simply ran past them. He could hear their cries of shock and outrage, so he turned around and blasted the ceiling. The Frexiani scattered as the attack blasted a hole in it, sending debris falling down on them. Ben continued up the stairs. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 12. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Bigby the Big Bad Wolf on fanfictionnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.